What's up everyone, Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series where I give you maximum truth and minimum bullshit regarding the latest video game releases. It's been quite some time since I've done a review because, let's face it, it was a pretty slow summer, but with that being said, let's get right into it with the major release that started this year's hardcore gaming season of 2015, Until Dawn. So, right off the bat, you might say, how do you classify a game like Until Dawn? Is it survival horror? Is it more of a interactive movie, choose your own adventure, a la Heavy Rain, or kind of like Beyond Two Souls, or not? Well, I'll be honest, it does basically follow along in the formula of games such as Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, with a little bit of a twist. The twist being that your choices not only directly affect things that happen, but can actually change the game, actually have entire scenes and scenarios happen or not happen, dependent on the actual things that you do. Now, I'm going to be honest with everyone up front here. The game is certainly not as much of an interactive, every choice matters kind of a deal as maybe it first presents itself, or at least as of you would hope, okay? There's going to be situations in Until Dawn where you make a choice, and regardless of what the choice was that you did, regardless if you entered the quick time event correctly or not, the outcome really was predetermined and it didn't really matter and it won't affect anything. On the flip side of that, Until Dawn, more so than any game I've ever played, has enough of these choices in it that if you do one thing or the other, or if you screw up a quick time event, you could potentially kill off one of the main characters of the game and say, oops, well, they're out of the rest of the game, and you're like, oh shit. So really, Until Dawn, at least on your very first playthrough through the game, will keep you on your toes, because you never know if what you're actually doing could contribute significantly to a plot development, that someone dies, or that some weird thing happens, or someone's here instead of here, and it really could change the plot of the game, alright? But, that being said, understand, this is not the humongous changes in the game where, like, you know what I mean? Oh my god, if you do this, the entire game's different for the rest of the game. No, that's not the case. It's more of, okay, if one person's dead, a la Heavy Rain, they're dead and they're not coming back, but then everyone else's stories kind of continue on the same as if, that person was there or not, okay? So Until Dawn stars I would say probably one of the best casts when it comes to a game to mocap that I've seen. And what I mean by that is it has real actors and actresses in it. It stars Hayden Panettiere, who was one of the main characters of the television series Heroes and also the television series Nashville. It's got the guy who played Grant Ward in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the popular Marvel Comics television show. It's got one of the guys who's one of the main cast of Mr. Robot, which is a current popular television show right now. So it actually is kind of neat to see these characters basically taken off of your television screen, right, and tossed into an interactive video game. And some of the people, like the Doctor and other people that are in the game, you recognize them, you're like, man, I know who that is. I've seen that person in movies before. I can't necessarily put my finger on it, but I know I've seen that person in movies before. And I'd have to say, everyone in the game, besides maybe one or two people, does a really great, a great portrayal, a great performance, per se. And if anything, what that does is adds to the atmosphere of Until Dawn, and allows the game to really feel like an interactive horror movie. And that is kind of the best way that I could sum up Until Dawn. Imagine the cliches of a horror movie. Oh no, there's, 7 friends who are at a cabin up in these woods in a remote area, and all of a sudden these creepy things start happening to them. They get separated. Someone is stalking them and is after them. And the question is, who is it and why are they doing it? And are they purposely doing it for an agenda, or is it just some homicidal killer? Is there a supernatural twist to it? And the game touches upon all of these things during the course of the game. It actually has the classic horror movie twist in the middle of the story that kind of flips it on its head, and surprise characters that show up out of nowhere, and all kinds of that kind of stuff that's very cliche for a horror movie. So if you're a fan of horror movies, if you're a horror movie buff, you are going to love Until Dawn. In fact, it probably will end up being one of your favorite games of all time, because that's really what they were going for. How do we make a 5 to 8 hour long interactive horror movie that not only has really high production values, but also has replayability? And that's really what they were going for, and that's what I feel they succeeded with Until Dawn, alright? So, the gameplay of the game, quite honestly, is it the most complex game you'll ever play? Absolutely not. Is it very difficult? No. In fact, the game isn't very challenging at all. If anything, the game literally is quick time events plus kind of critical story choices. So you might have a choice to either side with one character or another during an argument, and it depending on if you sided with this character or that character, that person who you sided with may like you, the other person may dislike you, and may choose to either help or not help you later on when you're in desperate need of help because you're running from a killer or something like that. Other choices include maybe just going left or right down a hallway. Left is another different quick time event sequence, and right is certain death. And those are the kind of choices that you're going to be making when playing Until Dawn. Ultimately, as long as you're using common sense, as long as you're paying attention to the collectibles in the game, of which there are a significant amount, whether it's newspaper clippings, pictures, clues that let you try to figure out, gee, who is this homicidal killer that's coming after the kids? But in addition to that, totems. You find these little totem items on the ground, and those actually will flash forward to a possible thing that could happen in the game, whether it's a death of a critical character, whether it's a way to save a character, whether it's just a warning of danger that's coming up. These totems will show you flashes of the future, and it's cool to try to put together all of these flashes and try to understand where they fit into the story. The cool thing about Until Dawn is, as I've said, it really is the most interactive game when it comes to having a choice that may veer from something else. A lot of the totems you'll find may show a potential death that you never come across in the game, because maybe you made the right choice, or maybe your character died in a different way, and so you never came across that particular death. You're like, man, I want to replay the game, or at least replay this chapter a different way and see if I can get that outcome. And the cool thing about Until Dawn is that there are actually some pretty difficult outcomes to get during the course of the game that will actually reward you trophies. For example, if you save every single person at the end of the game, yes, it is possible for every single person in the cast of Until Dawn who's a major character to survive. If you do that, you get a good trophy at the end, a golden trophy as a reward. There's trophies for killing everyone, which you might not realize it, but actually killing everyone in Until Dawn is quite difficult. You actually need to know certain circumstances and the right things to pick so that characters will die at certain times for things to happen. Because there may have another character alive at one point and he ends up saving another character. You're like, shit, well, if they had died earlier, then that second person would have died, etc. And it leads kind of like a domino butterfly effect, okay? I'll be honest here. It is a little disappointing in a couple ways, alright? Number one, there are some things in the game that are totally scripted, and there's nothing you could do about them. And the first time you play the game, you think you can affect it, and you can't. And the next time you play, you're like, that's a little lame. Because, for example, there's a couple characters who will live till almost the very end of the game, and there's no way for you to kill them earlier. And you realize that after your first playthrough of the game, so when you're playing the game the second time, you're like, well, I'm not going to do any QuickTime events for this character then, because I know that they're basically bullshit QuickTime events as filler gameplay that you don't need to do, because we know that character's going to end up living at the end of the game. So that was kind of a little bit of a letdown for me. Also, I'll be honest, there's one sequence in the game that is incredibly difficult to get to. Let me give you some perspective on it, of the domino effect you need to do. Earlier on in the game, you need to make a certain choice for this even to happen, to be possible. Then when you reach a certain portion in the story, you're being chased by someone. You need to continuously make the right decisions as to, do you hide or run, quick times and stuff. And there's probably about 4 to 5 major choices you need to make. So we're talking tons of possibilities of things that you could choose wrong. And if at any point you choose wrong, the scene just ends, which is fine. But it's annoying because if you actually get to the end of this branch of choices, there's apparently a secret room full of all this information about behind the scenes of the story of the game, and it almost kind of spoils what's going on and solves kind of the mystery of who is the mysterious killer in the game. And it's cool if you get to it, but I played the game twice, twice fully, once trying to save everyone, and once trying to kill everyone, and I still was not able to complete this sequence. I got to the very end, and then I made a wrong choice, and I was like, damn, well, I'm not going to replay this whole thing again, you know what I mean, in order to get to that choice. That's too annoying. I'm not going to replay 20 to 25 minutes of gameplay to get to it. Speaking of which, now let's talk about the positives. Awesome chapter selection after you beat the game. After you beat the game the first time, gee, I'd like to go back and play chapter 3 and see if I made this choice instead of this choice, how it would affect the game. You could do that. It unlocks a chapter select that will allow you to go back and do things, but warning, the game will auto-save while you're playing. So if you liked your outcome, right, and then you went back to chapter 3 and you changed something, everything past that is going to get changed. It's a butterfly effect now, right? You're not going to be able to go back and make a different decision again based off of your original line of choices. They'll all be erased. So maybe if you are going to replay the game, the best way to do it might be, okay, well, I'm going to replay the last chapter. Okay, now I'll replay chapter 9, then the last chapter. You see what I mean? Like going back gradually so that you don't accidentally erase everything you've done. Alright? Some of the collectibles are pretty hard to find. I played through the game twice. I still didn't find a bunch of the collectibles. So obviously there's some challenge involved there. It really seems to me that if you want to get every single collectible, you need to know every scenario and you need to have a guide for it. But at the same time, you don't need every collectible. With the first playthrough that I did, lasted around 7 hours long. I was able to piece together pretty much the majority of the plot and everything that was happening. And I had a lot of fun, and I thought the first playthrough was awesome. And then I wanted to go back and play a second playthrough, and that playthrough was a lot shorter. Instead of, say, 7-8 hours, that one was around 5 to 6 hours, because I didn't need to read all the data and the logs and the clues and stuff that I found in the game. I already knew what they had said. So instead of that, I was rushing through and trying to make alternate choices. Like, I know there's a situation where a guy's hand will get maimed. I want to see that, and I would do it on purpose, and oh, God, his fingers come off, and it's gruesome as shit, but it's fun to see the alternate choices and how it affects things. So ultimately, Until Dawn is the best choose-your-own-adventure, your choices actually matter style game I've ever played, alright? The first playthrough you play, you'll probably get anywhere between 6 to 9 hours of gameplay depending on how fast you go and how well you do, because if people stay alive, there's extra scenes and things near the end of the game that could add on to the length of the game that may not happen if the characters died earlier on in the game, alright? The second playthrough you probably do ultimately is going to be a lot shorter because you're not going to want to read all the logs or whatever. But I could definitely see anyone who buys this game at least playing it twice, if not longer, and probably getting anywhere from, 15 hours of gameplay roughly out of the game. A lot of people might have issue with that. Only 15 hours of gameplay out of a $60 game, all right? If that's the case, and that's the thing, you don't want to invest that much money in it, I can understand that. I would definitely say at least rent it if you are a horror movie buff. This is the quintessential kind of B-movie cheesy game with every horror movie cliche thrown in there. Now, a few nitpicks, a little pet peeves about the game that kind of annoyed me. There are some sequences where you're being talked to by a doctor, and the doctor is giving you choices in a book. And what do you find scarier, clowns or scarecrows? And you're thinking, gee, I wonder what the hell this is going to have to do with the game. And really, it ultimately doesn't have much impact. All it does is, in 1 or 2 scenes, there may be like a jump scare, and the jump scare is wearing a clown mask instead of a scarecrow mask, and it's like, oh. Speaking of jump scares, those are probably the most groan-inducing things in the game. There are a couple things that happen during the course of the game that make absolutely no sense, and you're like, when it happens, you're literally like, what the fuck was that? Because it's funny, you'll be watching, like, you'll be looking through a telescope, and all of a sudden, jump scare in front of you, but the characters in the game don't even react to it. And you're like, so did that actually happen, or is that the game trying to be kind of cheesy to jump scare me so that I'll be like, oh, and get a little thrill? Again, if you like horror movies, it's probably acceptable, and it probably won't be that big of a deal because you're used to getting jump scares in a horror movie. How many times in a horror movie is there a loud noise for absolutely no fucking reason just to try to rattle you? Right? Versus anything that's actually psychological horror. This game has those on purpose to be like a kind of a typical, stereotypical horror movie. So, expect that. But understand, outside of those scares, there is also a big overlying plot of this mysterious killer, and there's supernatural elements and stuff in there that are going to keep you hooked. I'm trying not to spoil the plot too much, because obviously the plot is the most important part of this game. If you know what's going to happen, it's not that good of a game, right? You already spoiled the whole story, then why am I going to play it? So, ultimately, I do recommend you play this game before you watch someone play it. And a lot of people watch my playthrough. I'll tell you right now, if you're watching this review before you watch my playthrough, play the game yourself first. Don't spoil the whole story for yourself. Play it yourself first, and then maybe watch me play it and enjoy it yourself, and that's the way that you can experience the game, alright? So, ultimately, all these factors, great graphics, great acting and voice capture and mocap, and awesome branching choices, probably the best branching choices, some replayability, the fact that you probably want to play the game 2 to 3 times, lots of positives there. The negatives kind of being there's kind of cheesy jump scares, and a lot of the things that you do in the game don't really have an effect. Like I said, there's entire characters who are just doing the quick time events don't even affect anything because they're actually destined to survive or scripted to survive till the end of the game regardless. And I'll be honest, there are a couple plot holes. There are a couple plot holes in the game, or maybe I shouldn't say plot holes, but questions that are like glaring questions that never get answered, which typically happens with most horror movies. In order to enjoy a horror movie, let's face it, you need to suspend your disbelief. You need to say, okay, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt that these kids are being sent off to this cabin in the woods by themselves with no adult supervision and no proper way to make sure that they can get in touch with the authorities. Obviously, in real life, that would probably be highly risky, highly culpable. You'd probably have people who are there responsible for these kids. But, alright, let's suspend our disbelief so that we can get along with the horror premise. And that's kind of what happens in horror movies, too. Such ridiculous things that happen in a lot of movies that ultimately you're like, that's so ridiculous, that's so preposterous. But you have to understand that that's the point, is that you're trying to get into this B-movie feel. It's trying to be very stereotypical, and it succeeds at that. Again, I'm a fan of 1980s horror movies, slasher movies, suspense movies like that. If you like that, you're gonna love Until Dawn. And by the way, the game does not skimp on gore. There is some serious gore in this game, so don't think, oh man, it's one of those pansy games. No, no, no. If anything, the one thing that I think might turn off some people, so I will very upfront tell you this, a lot of the characters can tend to be obnoxious in this game. They're supposed to be, again, stereotypical teenage-style characters that are, like, maybe stuck up or annoying or bitchy. And again, that's very typical for horror movies to have that in it. Because that way, when they get killed, you don't feel so bad, right? And then, of course, you got this hero, the quintessential person who kind of lives till the end of the movie, who's the do-gooder, right? And, of course, you're going to have that in this game, too. Very stereotypical in that regard. So, weighing and balancing everything, ladies and gentlemen. I think some people are about to be shocked. I really do think some people are about to be shocked. I'll be honest with you. I loved Until Dawn, but I'm a horror movie buff, and I love this style of game because when I play it, it really lends itself to my commentary, and I'm able to make jokes and observational humor and things, and people are telling me this is probably one of the best playthroughs I've done in years. That's good to hear, and I'm very happy to hear that because obviously that means I'm doing something right? But because it's a good playthrough, doesn't necessarily equate to it being a good game, alright? When I'm looking at all the other games that I've been playing this year, and I look at games that have had 20, 30 hours of gameplay right out of the box, and I'm looking at games that had massive replayability, okay? I have to take that into consideration when I factor in Until Dawn. Yes, Until Dawn is the best choose-your-own-adventure style game ever made, in my opinion. I actually think that doing that, it did it better than Heavy Rain, and it did it better than Beyond Two Souls, and it certainly does it better than those Telltale games that pretend like your choices matter. So-and-so will remember that, and then that person dies 5 seconds later, so it didn't really fucking matter anyway. I really think that this game does that, the choice system, the best out of any game like that. I think by far, for a horror movie simulator, it's the best game I've ever played in that regards. And anyone who's a horror movie buff, this will be probably one of your favorite games of all time. But for the common person to come and spend $60 for like a 7 to 8 hour horror movie, B-movie experience, and then try to play it again to get the other alternate deaths and stuff, I don't know. In this day and age, I really feel that this year in particular, 2015, has kind of been a year of heavy hitters, and we've even got some more big ones around the corner that I'm feeling really positive about. I have a hard time giving a game like Until Dawn like a super high score, regardless of the fact that I loved the game, right? That people who watched the playthrough loved it. A good playthrough game does not equate to a good game for the consumer, and this is a game review, not a playthrough quality review. So ultimately, I'm weighing in all of the factors that come into play with Until Dawn. And after weighing in all of the factors on my strict grading scale, I'm going to give Until Dawn an 8.25. It's a fun-ass game. It's a great game. It's very entertaining. It'll give you thrills and chills. You're going to get some laughs out of it. Again, horror movie buffs will love it. But it is just kind of an interactive movie. There's no critical gameplay element here outside of the fact that you want to try to get someone to live or die or find all the collectibles. You're never going to want to play the game more than just a couple times. Maybe you'll replay a couple extra chapters to see a few extra outcomes and get all the trophies. And it really, it's great for what it is. But when I put $60 down, I do expect something more. And I don't feel that Until Dawn did that. I feel like it was almost there. Like if the game could have been a little longer and maybe had a few extra things in there, elements, I think that it could have done a lot better. But ultimately, I'm going to give it an 8.25, which, by the way, is great. On my scale, that's great. It's just not Game of the Year contender. It's a great game. It's a fun game. It's certainly worth a rental, if not a full buy, if you are a horror movie fan. But it's certainly not going to be like one of my Game of the Year top 3 nominees. There's no way. When a game that's just that short and that limited amount of content, there's no way that I could do that. But I liked it a lot. I hope that you liked the playthrough, and definitely check out the game if you think that that's the kind of game that you'd enjoy. Alright. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for the Hateful Truth game review of Until Dawn. I hope that you enjoyed it and you found it informative. I hope you feel that I give you maximum truth and minimum bullshit. Stay tuned for this gaming season for many, many more reviews coming out this way as soon as I finish up the game playthroughs, which for a lot of these games it seems like it's going to take quite a long time because they're pretty long, but that's a good thing. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time for the Hateful Truth. Peace out.
Light of my life? Jess. Buddy. You there?
Whoa, what's this? Oh, God!
Whoa!
The fuck was that?
Scared the blue out of my jeans.